Were our prayers in vain after 163 heart-wrenching days of angst, anxiety, prayers, and so many mitzvot done for our son? Last week, he was declared, unfortunately, deceased and murdered from the 7th of October, Simchat Torah. And, you know, so many people, we deeply appreciate the prayers for Daniel's well-being from around the world. I know that a number of teachers and heads of schools said that their children had asked, you know, we've been davening, felt so connected to this boy and all of the hostages for over 5 months, day in and day out, multiple times a day. Were our prayers in vain? Especially since before we even started davening for Daniel, he had in fact already been killed. We only started davening for him a day or two later when we heard the terrible news that he had been missing and then taken hostage. But the truth is, it turns out that he'd already been killed in the battles on that day. Were these prayers in vain to pray for so long and to know that indeed he had already been deceased even before we began to pray? And all 163 days in essence were prayers which seem in vain. I believe that nothing could be further from the truth for two reasons. Firstly, although it's not the result that we wanted, and we hoped and prayed with every fiber in our being, and thank you for all of your prayers, although it's not the result we wanted, thank God that I think and feel as a result of all of these prayers, we were able to get a video which we've decided not to see, but the Chief Rabbi of the Army and the doctors unequivocally say that based on this video, we can see that our son was killed on the day on Simchat Torah, and he did not suffer. So for us to know that these 163 days of angst and pain, of a suffering that I've never experienced, have come to an end, although not the end we wanted, and now we can begin to mourn. But to know that we no longer need to fear. We're no longer worried about him anymore. He's in a good place. It's only our loss. It's a painful, painful loss, but we don't have to worry about him. He is in a good place. It's our mourning and our loss, but he's in a good place. The fact that we now know that our son is not suffering, never suffered, and this suffering for us doesn't continue. The fact that we had that video, and that video was able to unequivocally show that he was killed and that he didn't suffer, is an enormous sense of relief in this crazy situation. And I believe and we believe that because of your and our prayers all around the world and so much good, we were able, because he'd already been killed, and therefore our prayers couldn't bring him back to life, but what they could do was thankfully bring this finality. Although his body is still to be buried, both for him and the entire week before, we are enormously appreciative. And secondly, I want to say, is that we always daven for Daniel amongst the other hostages. And there's so many other hostages, including Matan in the tank, whose name has been changed to Matan Shachar ben Anat, to please pray for him, and so many others. And therefore our prayers were never only for Daniel. They were for Daniel amongst all the other hostages, who so many still need our prayers. Those who have to still be buried, like about 35 at the moment, whose bodies need to come back, and those who, please God, are still alive to come back. So the prayers, I believe, were not only not in vain, but they actually brought about a result which had already been determined, but at least we were able to experience it through the prayers and bring our suffering for Daniel's anxiety for him to an end, and be able to move to the next painful stage of mourning. And secondly, I want to say something we all know. Prayer is something which first and foremost changes us. Prayer, lehitpalel, famously is lehitpalel reflexive. It's not only has an impact in the world, it first and foremost has an impact on us. If we are able to change ourselves and who we are as people, then we have a chance of changing the world. And boy, oh boy, have we felt that. The amount of people that we've met, the barriers between people that have come down, how Am Yisrael in so many ways, through all the hostages and our son part, have become one. The acts of kindness and the challah and the afrashot challah and the mitzvot and the prayers, we have changed. We've become closer to God as people. We've become closer to each other. And therefore that lasts forever. And if we can continue to pray that our son be returned for burial, and all those who need to return be returned, and for the safety of all of our soldiers, Bezrat Hashem, as Hashem has promised us, that Hashem is close to us, B'chol Koreinu Elav, the power, the atomic power of prayer is the spiritual iron dome of the Jewish people. And please God, as we read in this week's parasha of Tzav, all about the korbanot, that all the sacrifices that we unfortunately are not able to bring today, please God, soon in the Beit HaMikdash, that our sages have famously said, that in place of sacrifice, of giving of ourselves, of changing within are our prayers. Our prayers today, our communal prayers, our communal sacrifices, and our personal prayers, our personal sacrifices. And please God, may we continue to pray, continue to daven, continue to drop arrows, continue to feel as one and turn as one to God. As a result of that, please God, only good things will happen to the Jewish people. All the hostages will return soon, those who need to be buried, and please God, our soldiers will be protected, and only good things, Bezrat Hashem, for the Jewish people. Shabbat Shalom.